In these last few podcasts, we've talked about how everything is being prepared for tribulation. It's truly eye-opening to see these events beginning. We've talked in previous podcasts about the fourth bowl of wrath, removing the protection of Earth's magnetosphere. In Revelation we read, "And the fourth angel poured out his bowl upon the sun, and it was given power to scorch people with fire." The process for this to happen isn't about to start. It has started.
From Popular Mechanics, scientists are getting kind of anxious about a pothole in space. My friends, this story is from March 31st, 2023. The Earth's magnetic field protects us and our orbiting tech from the worst effects of the sun's energetic rays. In a region called the South Atlantic Anomaly, however, the magnetic field is significantly weaker than over the rest of the planet. Some speculation as to what may have happened with that power outage is that the grid gets knocked out when the magnetosphere weakens, allowing solar storms to blast our electrical grid, overheat it, and shut it down. Take a look at this story. This is from NASA.gov, August of 2020. NASA researchers track slowly splitting dent in Earth's magnetic field. We have this story from Daily Galaxy from July of last year. Extreme solar blasts and weak magnetic fields threaten life on Earth. The narrative has been persistent, and the impact of solar flares on Earth have been well known. You can see here where this blast of solaration can actually break through the magnetosphere. That's where you get the aurora borealis. It's pretty cool stuff. I saw it. I landed in Fairbanks, Alaska. Walking out of the airport, it was minus 30, and we looked up aurora borealis. Pretty cool stuff. But recently, and many of you may have noticed this, I think several months ago. The aurora was visible as far south as West Virginia. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe things are getting worse. Popular Mechanics says Earth's magnetic field is incredibly important to life on our planet. By allowing for compass navigation and displaying the aurora borealis way up north, it's responsible for shielding us from the worst effects of the sun's rays. A little bit of sun. We need a lot would have some serious negative impacts. Thankfully, we do have a magnetic field. However, there's a pothole called the South Atlantic Anomaly. And it's not a physical dent. It's a region in the skies between South America and Africa where our magnetic field is weaker than it is around the rest of the planet. This weakness isn't life-threatening. It would have to be way more significant, but it is an issue for the craft we've launched into orbit. Objects like satellites and other spacecraft reside within our magnetic fields as they orbit Earth. As such, they still benefit from their protection, but you take it away, and you're going to get a bunch of technical difficulties. The immediate concern right now is that this anomaly is going to damage our technology. However, we recently spoke with Ben Davidson, who talked to us about the potential for a polar shift. The planet's poles shifting, the Earth tilting down, and this does happen. This is not conspiracy. This is true. This is a fact. We had him on the show, and I will say it may be a bit alarming and a bit sensational. The scary thing about it is that it sounds world-ending. It seems to a lot of people too crazy to believe because we have an optimism bias and we don't want to believe that these cataclysmic events could actually happen. But there are some interesting anomalies, such as there are glaciers in Indonesia. I didn't know this. Yeah, it's warm, it's tropical, and there are mountaintop glaciers, indicating that at some point, water froze in large quantities and then somehow moved into an area that is pretty warm. But here's what we're going to do. Instead of me prattling on about it, we're going to bring in Ben Davidson. The day before this power outage, The Guardian wrote an op-ed saying solar storms could lead to nuclear disasters. Then we get a day later this massive power outage in Europe that they're saying is due to an atmospheric phenomenon. I'm wondering if you want to break down for us what you think happened here, and then we'll figure out where to go from there.
Absolutely. Well, the official explanation that they're giving is about 80% correct. Their official explanation is that extreme temperatures caused an atmospheric oscillation, which resulted in a desyncing and induction event into the high voltage lines. Things weren't matching up, and basically the entire system had a cascading failure.
Okay, well, real quick.
Most of that is correct.
How?
Go ahead.
So wait. All of this sounds like very technical jargon to us. Like, what's the layman's terms? Like, the temperature caused the electricity, vibrations? What is this?
Essentially, there is some pretty high level physics involved with the atmospheric oscillation thing, but essentially what they're saying is extreme temperatures caused this electric surge to go through and shock the system and basically break it. That would be the simplest version. Now, that is what happened in terms of the breakage, but there was no extreme heat. It would take such extreme heat to do that you don't find that anywhere on Earth. Not to mention the fact that temperatures in the area yesterday were about a half a degree above normal, and normal for the end of April in the Iberian Peninsula of Europe is just not that hot.
I think it was reported at like 70 degrees.
It was not too hot. It was complete nonsense. Now, there are two things that are really interesting. One, they were noticing a surge in the solar power output. Basically, the solar panels, for some reason that they can't understand or explain, surged power through the system. Now, while this was happening, I was taking a look at the data about the ionosphere, which is the electric layer up at the top of the atmosphere. It got hit. It took a major hit. And then you could see this energy coming down through the atmosphere through what we call the global atmospheric electric circuit, where not only can you see it vertically moving up and down, but you can use the ground level winds to see where it's going to go. It follows the water vapor in the atmosphere, in the wind. Water, electricity, they kind of like each other. And so you could see it coming down, and then that electricity surge go right into Portugal, Spain, and France at the exact same time.
Wow.
As the blackout. Now, here's the interesting thing. They have a pretty good idea about what that was, but the fact that they also saw the solar panels inexplicably surge their output at the exact same time is the definitive clue. Essentially what we have is, I mean, I've been on your shows twice already talking about the fact that we're in a magnetic pole shift, that things are getting a little scary and they're accelerating faster and faster. This was one of the things I really started to expect to see in the 2030s. We're a little early on that. And I had to admit to my viewers, I can't really account for how quickly these things have been happening since about March of 2023. Our timeline was pretty solid with what we were expecting, but in about the last 2 years and change, things have just been going way too quickly. The Earth is taking way too big a hits from basically anything the sun throws at us. And then 2 days ago, the sun didn't even throw anything at us. This was just a hole in Earth's magnetic field, a weak spot. The plasma broke through, the ultraviolet broke through the depressed ozone at that time. And, you know, I don't know whether it was the extra ultraviolet surging through the solar panels, or more likely in my head, the plasma actually coming down and integrating directly into the system, which is the electric shock that some of the experts are talking about, that hit the one system and basically caused a violent fluctuation that collapsed the system over those three countries. Or it's both of them combined. So either one of them could do it, but their cause is really the story here, why it happened.
Is there any possibility? I don't know what the official explanation Puerto Rico's given for their power outage last week. Is there any relation to that?
So that happened less than 60 seconds after the solar storm began that day. That one was solar driven.
Really?
And it was very clear. The solar storm began and Puerto Rico went black. It was literally boom, boom, 1-2 punch. As fast as when you punch someone, how fast they hit the ground. That's how fast it was.
So have they given an official explanation for why the power went out? Have they said it was a solar storm or something?
They have noted that it was that there was a solar storm at the same time. They have not officially declared anything for the Puerto Rico event. They have now released all the data out of Europe from 2 days ago. It's very clear what happened and that it was a sync issue. And so either all of that other atmospheric data and the solar panel data is telling us that this was Earth's magnetic pole shift, you know, hinting at the world, hey, I'm coming, or at the exact perfect moment, some idiot at the control board hit the wrong button. I mean, so like,
Maybe.
it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible, but
Well, it's hard for people to believe that there's going to be such a cataclysmic event. But let's break this down. If this is a sign of a pole shift, what's causing it in your view, and what does that mean next?
so that could get pretty complex. But essentially, this is a cycle on Earth. Earth's magnetic field spends several thousand years pretty normal, like we have now, easily protecting us from the sun and cosmic rays, all the scary stuff out in space. But then every few thousand years, it just decides it's going to glitch out, and it goes through a pole shift, and it gets very weak, and that space energy comes in and basically starts attacking the atmosphere. Now, in civilizations past, it was mostly a radiation and climatological issue. It affects the ozone, as I mentioned. It affects water vapor in the clouds, so it affects clouds, rain, storms, wind, things like that. Not to mention the extra ultraviolet, which we already mentioned, and those particles themselves aren't exactly good if they hit your DNA or they start messing with your electrolytes in your body. There's a reason we call them that, and this is electromagnetic radiation we're talking about. But now we also have an electro-dependent society. People think, oh, you just turn the faucet and water magically comes out. Well, it's not magic. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on with that. They think that, oh, food just shows up in the grocery store. I don't think they realize how much transportation and refrigeration and logistics go into something like that. Or the heating or air conditioning in their house, the internet, 911, banking, gas stations, all transactions that aren't cash. It all stops. It all stops. And when the government did this study on what's going to happen when the sun takes out power, and it could be applied to Earth's magnetic pole shift taking out power, 90 to 95% of our species is gone in 6 months.
Wow.
This is kind of a process of, we don't know when we're getting to the finish line, but there's guardrails. There's no way off this road. It is all downhill, and our brakes don't work. We're getting to the finish line. This is going to happen. We're perfectly due in time. It happens about every 6,000 years to some extent. It's 6,000 years from the last one. What's happening? Oh, the magnetic field is shifting again. This is exactly what's happening. We're starting to see all of the effects that we'd expect to see. If it wasn't so terrifying, I would be patting myself on the back right now.
Did you know that the government's been expanding Raven Rock and Mount Weather?
They're doing a lot of stuff right now.
For people who don't know, these aren't the only emergency bunkers that they have. But a couple of years ago, I think Congress passed a budget for the expansion of Mount Weather and Raven Rock. Fans of the Fallout series know exactly what this is. It's where government officials and powerful individuals expect to go in the event of some kind of catastrophe. And so the question we were asking is like, what catastrophe are they preparing for?
But, take a look at what Jeff Bezos is doing. He's hollowing out that mountain across the street from the Blue Origin launch facility.
Yeah.
Richard Branson's $45 million bunker is right under the control tower for Virgin Galactic. And SpaceX and the Boring Company are Elon's. All the billionaires are planning, hey, we might need to go up, we might need to go down. Let's put them in the exact same place so we can decide at a moment's notice.
That is kind of funny that you got two billionaires that are basically like, we need to get to space now. So you think these? Let me start here. These stories have been around for like a decade, actually. They in New Zealand, they're building mountainside bunkers. In that movie Kingsman, they land a plane in the side of a mountain. That's not science fiction. They're building that. They're building landing strips in mountains.
Yep.
Do you think this is the reason? I mean, you probably do,
oh, yeah.
right?
Definitely. They've known this was coming since the 1940s when they classified Project Nanook.
What is that?
So they sent Major Maynard White up to the Canadian Arctic to sort of set up shop. They were worried Russia was going to come over the top. But what they were doing, because obviously you have to figure out how to navigate, and so they needed to understand how to do that so close to the magnetic pole. And when they started digging down and looking for things, they found a layer of polar fossils, then tropical fossils, then polar fossils, then tropical fossils, indicating that It's not just a magnetic shift. The world is going to turn over and send the oceans into the land.
In the past week, we've seen some pretty serious blackouts. In Puerto Rico, the power went out island-wide. At the same time, or I should say around the same time, within a few days, we got this major blackout across Europe. Now, we don't know exactly what happened. They're saying they believe it was induced atmospheric vibrations in Europe which caused this power outage. I'm not sure if we've got an official answer on Puerto Rico. And the other day, I interviewed Ben Davidson, who said he believes this was the weakening of the magnetosphere. Basically, the Earth's core spins, makes a magnetic field, and this repels a lot of solar plasma, radiation particles, etc. I'm probably getting it somewhat wrong, but that's the general idea, right? Now, what he's saying is he believes this was not a solar storm, but this was normal solar activity penetrating Earth's magnetosphere, which functions as a kind of shield. This caused a fluctuation in our power grid, tripping an emergency breaker, essentially, which shuts the power down. They were able to restore this. Interestingly, around this time, we got a report from The Guardian stating that solar storms will become more frequent, and this could cause nuclear disasters. Interestingly enough, around this exact same time, once again, Tucker Carlson did an interview with Catherine Austin Fitts. And in this podcast, she explains $21 trillion over a long period of time in the U.S. government going missing that she believes was used to build, what do they call them? DUMBs, I think, deep underground military bases with tunnels connecting them. She actually says maybe the pole shift, maybe something else. But powerful elites are preparing for an extinction type event. Now, I don't know if the U.S. government has been appropriating trillions of dollars to build underground cities. Part of me says, why not? Since the Cold War, we've been terrified of nuclear annihilation. And of course, we do know about Mount Weather and Raven Rock. In fact, you can look up Mount Weather. We all know it exists. There's also the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. These deep underground bases really do exist. The question is, has the U.S. government been secretly funneling trillions of dollars to build what is essentially cities underground to house the elites in the event of some type of extinction event? This story has been persistent for some time because we know, for the most part, elites are building these bunkers, be it New Zealand, be it Montana or Wyoming or wherever. Powerful wealth interests are preparing for the worst. The question then becomes, how do they power? How do they ventilate these things? And that is interesting because it would imply technology we're not yet familiar with. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if the government actually was allocating resources to this on a much larger scale than we realize. Sure, we know about Mount Weather, but like any other advanced technology that the U.S. government has developed as a weapon, they don't immediately just tell everybody in the world they've done it. If there are emergency bunkers built by the U.S. government, it would be imperative they keep it a secret, lest these sites become targets of our adversaries in a nuclear strike. But what if it's something else? What if it is a magnetic pole shift? This is epic stuff. Tucker Carlson stunned as ex-Bush official reveals U.S. has doomsday bunker for elites. A former Bush administration official has made a shocking claim that the U.S. government is secretly preparing for a mass extinction event on Earth. Catherine Austin Fitts, who was the U.S. Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for housing, what is that, typo? Joined Tucker Carlson on his podcast this week saying she found $21 trillion in unaccounted funds diverted to covert projects between 1998 and 2015. Quote, one of the things I've looked at in this process of looking at where all this money is going is the underground base, city infrastructure, and transportation system that's been built. Based on a 2-year study, Fitts estimated there's approximately 170 underground facilities in the U.S. and potentially under surrounding oceans connected by a secret transportation network. When Carlson asked about their purpose, Fitts responded, a near-extinction event, suggesting the bases are designed to protect elites during a catastrophic scenario. Now, hey, look, here's Vice.com. You know them, you love them, right? Billionaires are building luxury bunkers to escape doomsday. I've also got, I think, somewhere near the New York Times. Where's that New York Times article? I don't even know what here we go. The panic industry boom. People are building emergency underground bunkers. Fortifying the American home has become big business, selling escape tunnels, secret arsenals, and even flammable moats. We could use that one on the southern border, I suppose. Now let's take a look at this clip right here. We got a 4-minute clip from the Tucker Carlson podcast. And this is MJ Truth Ultra saying $21 trillion missing. Where's it going? Catherine Austin Fitts says our government has been building entire underground cities and transportation networks called DUMBs, deep underground military bases. She did a 2-year study. Tucker Carlson confirms he knew a contractor who worked on one in D.C. And if you ask people, this is what I'm hearing from my crew. In D.C., there's weird construction underground all the time with these big walls blocking off what they're doing. Take a listen to this.
But I think that whether it's a pole shift, magnetic pole shift is one of the theories of what causes these events. But there is a history of near extinction events. And one of the things that I've looked at, because I'm trying to figure out, between fiscal 1998 and fiscal 2015, there were 21 trillion of undocumentable adjustments in the U.S. government. If you go to our website, missingmoney.solari.com, we have years and years of documentation, including the government financials that show this. And so the question is, where's all this money going? And one of the things I've looked at in the process of looking at where all this money is going is the underground base and city infrastructure and transportation system that's been built. And
I'm sorry?
Yes. So we have built extraordinary number of underground bases.
Wow.
And supposedly transportation systems. Some of these are some of these are documented as part of the national security infrastructure. I think there are many more. So
I agree.
In the United States?
In the United States, all over the world. But from 2021 to 2023, I took one of the smartest subscribers in the Solari Report network, and he and I spent 2 years collecting all the data and all the allegations on underground bases. And then we systematically went through and tried to estimate our guess. This is totally a guess of how many underground bases, both underground in the United States, but also underground under the ocean around the United States. And our estimate was 170. With a transportation network connecting them.
Whoa.
And what would be the purpose?
The purpose, if you thought you were going to get a near extinction event, so there, to me, there are two purposes. You have so many activities going on that you need to keep secret, that you're basically building the capacity to, for example, if you're doing a secret space program, you need to platform it from, things that can't be seen. But I think if you're worried about a near extinction event, that's.
So I know nothing about this other than my only window into it. I knew a contractor who worked on one in Washington, in the city of Washington, D.C.
Right.
And I remember him telling me about a power box, like a transformer box on Constitution Avenue that he told me, because he worked on it personally, was actually the exit, the egress from the White House. That was kind of by vehicle. I thought that was
what?
And I was like, really? He goes, oh yeah, no, I installed it. I know.
You
And
can't
I thought,
tell
well,
people
that's kind of crazy that in the middle of this big city where I live, I was on Constitution Avenue every day, that you could build something like that without me knowing it. Under the VP's house at the Naval Observatory, same thing.
Wow.
I think most people know that. Next to my brother's house on Macomb Street in D.C.
So
But I always thought that was like preparation for nuclear war. Like, I didn't really think about it that much.
Some of it is, yeah. It's preparation for catastrophe.
So, but you think that there are facilities like that in other places outside D.C.?
Oh, yeah. So if you're interested, we have a great interview. I did an interview of Richard Dolan on underground bases on the Solari Report, and it's sort of an introduction to the topic, and it's based on a lot of the research of a guy named Richard Sauter, who is very hard to interview. So Richard kind of went through all the material. And clearly it's, I don't know if you ever saw, Washington Post did a project, it was in 2010 or 12, called Top Secret America. And one of the reporters, it was a team of 2 reporters, one of them put together a database of all the different top secret installations that had been built in the country, including since the Patriot Act. And
Wow.
what you saw was just this explosion of money in building so many both underground and above ground facilities.
I believe it. I really, really do. Looking at this story, there's a lot more information to break down, but let me start by saying this. I read about the Denver airport a long time ago. Many of you may have read about this, or maybe you didn't. The story goes that Denver had an airport, and for some reason they shut it down. They wanted to expand the airport. They didn't have the space, whatever. So they decided to build an airport much further outside the city. With this expansion, the speculation began to emerge of weird, creepy conspiracies. Notably that in Denver, you've got these, at the airport, you've got these weird paintings. You've also got what they call Lucifer. It's a giant blue stallion statue with demonic red eyes that apparently, after it was built, it collapsed and killed its creator. The conspiracy theory is that the Denver airport had elevators that went to deep sub-basements. Some reported 8 floors down. And they said underground. There was a network. There were cities. There was an entire city underground. Here's where it gets interesting. The conspiracy theories began to devolve from this point. All of a sudden, there were talks of dinosaur people and green-skinned lizards living underground. And then these conspiracies that there is a species of dinosaur that fled underground before the meteor hit, and they evolved to live in the shadows, but they're super intelligent. They've been around for 60 million years, and it's probably all bunk nonsense. Yeah, I don't believe it for a second. So why does that story emerge? Because perhaps the Denver airport actually does have an emergency bunker. Of course, we know that NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense, was housed not too far away in Colorado for a while. It stands to reason that when you're in a place like Colorado and you're a mile high, you could build down to these mountains. It's a great place to have emergency controls, emergency bunkers. So if someone came to me and said, they built this new airport with elevators that go into secret sub-basements, I'd say, yeah, that stuff we know exists. It's not far-fetched. Why then a narrative about dinosaur people living underground? Because it makes the story seem crazy. So if someone then comes out and says, I worked as a contractor and helped excavate several stories below the Denver airport, everyone else goes, this stupid dinosaur thing, there's no dinosaur people living under an airport. You people are crazy. It discredits you before you even tell the story. But the big question is Catherine Austin Fitts correct about a potential extinction event? That's where it gets more interesting. Are billionaires building these bunkers, which we know they're doing, because they know something or because they can? They're going to mention that Michigan State University economist Mark Skidmore and his team found $21 trillion in unauthorized spending in the DOD and Housing and Urban Development from 1998 to 2015. Skidmore worked with Fitts around that time, uncovering that the Army had $6.5 trillion in unsupported adjustments in fiscal 2015 alone. Given the Army's $122 billion budget, which meant unsupported adjustments were 54 times the spending authorized by Congress, Skidmore shared in the 2017 report. They also found 170 journal voucher adjustments that are used to correct errors in existing accounting entries or to make necessary adjustments at the end of a reporting period to ensure accurate financial statements. These adjustments amounted to $2.1 trillion. Interesting. She added the money went to funding an extraordinary number of underground bases and supposedly transportation systems. Some of these are of record, and some of these are documented as part of the national security infrastructure. I think there are many more. I think we have another clip that may be different.
One of the things I've looked at in the process of looking at where all this money is going is the underground base and city infrastructure and transportation system that's been built. And
I'm sorry?
yes. So
City infrastructure that's been built. So how would humans survive an extinction event like a magnetic pole shift? The story we covered just the other day, how a solar storm could lead to a U.S. nuclear disaster worse than Chernobyl. They put Chernobyl. Well, all right. Solar storms as intense as 1921 superstorm have the potential to cause a nightmare scenario, and we are unprepared. From this, HershSecure.com, the world's most secure buildings, Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center. This one we know exists in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Mount Weather recently got an expansion. They had to put out a notice to people who lived here that they were expanding because you were expected to see the construction. Now, I did see someone in the chat. They said, they misspelled Chernobyl. Someone in the chat said, you'd see all the dirt being hauled off. Yes, you would. Are you looking for it? Are you running satellites in Wyoming to track if they're hauling dirt places? Nobody is. Nobody's looking at that. And when they do construction, trucks are coming in out with gravel, dirt, and everything all the time. Not to mention, look, we did construction here. We built the building I'm in. We built it from the ground up. And they had to level the ground. And that created a big mound of dirt. They used that dirt. So what they did was they used it to level the sides of the building, or to, they take the dirt back and they level the area outside the building. So the dirt doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't leave the property. We don't haul it off. It gets reused. If you are digging a big tunnel, there's going to be a lot of material to move. We have this from SCMP, I believe it's Southern Chinese Morning Post. Finland's colossal underground bunkers, a model for anxious Europe. All over the place. We know all about it. The last thing I'm going to leave off on is woolly mammoths, because one of the things we brought up yesterday was that the mammoths they discovered, some of them had undigested plant matter in their stomachs. Interesting. Suggesting, and this is mainstream science, they were fast frozen. The argument is maybe they fell into icy waters and then they froze right away. Ben Davidson says maybe the planet tilted very quickly, turning a warm area into a cold area. A polar shift causing an axis tilt. I don't know. All I know is powerful elites, and this is a fact, are preparing for catastrophe.